Hello underachievers. So I'm probably gonna get annoyed in this video. If you don't want to be annoyed, then you probably shouldn't watch it. Also, my hair is drying from I had a shower, it's not greasy. So if you've not heard of Joe Rogan, you don't know who he is, pretty much he just has the biggest podcast in the world. He invites all sorts of people onto his podcast to talk to them. A lot of them are like very interesting, but Joe is he usually says some stupid shit. In this video, he has a guest called Abigail Shrier, I think is how you pronounce it. She's a journalist who wrote that book called Irreversible Damage: The Transgender Craze Seducing Our Daughters. Titana made a great video about that book. I'll link the video in the description below. Pretty much, the book is a Terf's dream. She also talks about a lot of trans influencers and of course misgenders them. Ariel Scarcella endorsed the book. That's all you need to know about it. So I'm going to react to this video today. The video I'm reacting to is called The Dangers of Giving Hormones to Kids with Gender Dysphoria. Also, don't worry, I downloaded the video off of YouTube to watch. He's not getting any of my ad revenue. I really did have a haircut a few weeks ago. It is just a disaster right now. Let's go.
And now they're watching these influencers. Which is another thing. Yeah. You know, you have these trans influencers and they promise these girls that if they just go on T, everything will get better.
That is not true. The last thing I'm going to say is that testosterone will not cure your depression. You can't rely on a hormone for that to happen. I've never seen any trans influencer saying that at all. I've watched a lot of trans influencers. I've watched everyone's tea updates. That is not a thing that has been said. The only thing similar to that that's being said is that, you know, it really helps their gender dysphoria, which it does. Obviously, if you're trans, transitioning will help your gender dysphoria.
And the problem...
Why do you think they do that?
Okay. So why do they... A couple reasons. So one is... testosterone has certain good effects. So it delivers a euphoria and it suppresses anxiety.
Testosterone actually made my anxiety worse in some ways, you know. Having drastically changing hormone levels really screws with your anxiety. I don't really think anybody goes on hormones to stop their anxiety.
And anxiety is one of their biggest problems. So they go on it and they feel great. And they can't wait to tell their friends. It makes their period go away.
Again, this is not true. For a lot of people that go on testosterone, their period will disappear and then some months it will come back. It's not like if you go on testosterone, your period will be done. I'm over 2 years on T and sometimes I get a little bit of a period. Stopping your period is not a reason to go on testosterone.
And it redistributes fat.
Testosterone does redistribute fat, but it redistributes it into a more male pattern. So, you know, females usually tend to hold fat in their butt and in their hips, whereas males tend to carry it in their trunk, as in their stomach.
So now these girls feel like, I just beat puberty.
I don't think anybody going on testosterone is thinking they beat puberty by going through another puberty. A lot of trans guys call their medical transition their second puberty. I don't really think any girl is looking forward to like a male fat pattern. Like Kim Kardashian is not walking around being like, oh my god, I can't wait to get all that fat in my stomach. We've had weeks of no rain, and then...
I feel amazing. I want to tell everybody how great I feel. And they are brave all of a sudden. They're braver and socially bolder. The problem is, of course, what they don't like to talk about online is all the really dangerous stuff that comes with testosterone too.
Obviously, that's not true. I have made several videos talking about the bad side effects of testosterone, like the negative ones that affected me. I've seen several videos of other trans guys doing it. She really just doesn't know what she's talking about when it comes to this.
Like it leads to infertility.
Testosterone doesn't make you infertile. You can come off testosterone and your period will usually start again. Testosterone can change your menstrual cycle, which makes it less likely for you to get pregnant, but if you want to get pregnant, you want to be fertile again, you can just stop testosterone, have a baby, and then go back on testosterone.
Like risk of cardiovascular attack, you know, risk of heart attack goes way up.
The risk of heart attack when you take testosterone will bring you up to the level that cis men's risks of heart attacks will be. I'm sorry, this is just, everything is wrong! You will be as likely as a cis man to have a heart attack if you go on testosterone. Yes, that is increased from, you know, female hormone levels, you know, it will go up a bit, but it's not like it's crazy. It's not like, oh my god, you go on testosterone, you're gonna have a heart attack.
There's, you know, body hair, facial hair.
But don't they want that?
Yeah. Yeah, we do.
So I think...
The body hair, facial hair part?
For now.
For now. See, I've met so many people like this, they think they know what trans people want more than trans people know themselves. She really is convinced that she knows better.
But it's permanent. You know, a lot of this...
Body hair is permanent?
It can be.
Body hair is not always permanent. I know trans guys that have gone off testosterone and their body hair is just dropped off.
So but what about when trans women, when a man transitions to a woman, don't they lose a lot of their body hair?
They lose some of it, but some of them are, I mean, everybody's different.
I don't know how she can sit there and say that everyone's different when she paints every trans guy the exact same way. We're all long-lost lesbians, you know. We don't know what we want with our life. We just want to cheat puberty and get male pattern baldness. No. know.
But some of them are stuck with a 5 o'clock shadow for life.
How does a kid know whether they are someone who's being easily influenced and someone who is giving in to this anxiety versus someone who's genuinely trans, like someone who genuinely is born in the wrong body?
So we have a 100-year diagnostic history of gender dysphoria. We know what it is. It's not guesswork. We know that it has, in this whole history, it typically presents in early childhood, ages 2 to 4 is when we see it starting, and it was overwhelmingly boys. Little boys who say, no, mommy, I'm not a boy, I'm a girl. Call me a girl. Only want to play with other girls. Only want to play with girl toys. And sometimes they hate their sexual organ. I mean, sometimes, it's a severe, persistent, insistent, consistent feeling. And then a lot of them would grow out of it, and some of them wouldn't, and they would become what we used to call transsexuals. Now we're seeing an explosion of young women, suddenly deciding they're trans with their friends.
And suddenly deciding they're trans with their friends. Come on. I hid being trans from my closest friends for years. I know she's going to talk about rapid onset gender dysphoria, which is the idea that it's like a contagion, like one person in a friend group is trans, and then suddenly they all start coming out. Just a thought. Queer people kind of, they kind of gravitate towards each other. I was thinking about this the other day, like, my childhood best friend, we got on so well. She's a lesbian now. My other childhood best friend, he's gay now. One of my only friends in the senior school I went to, he is trans now. And also, when it does emerge from friend groups, do you not think that maybe if someone is brave enough to come out as trans and be like, hey, I'm trans, that will make the other person that maybe is questioning their gender more, comfortable coming out with their gender identity?
They are doing it in friend groups. They'll have a whole friend group of trans kids. They are, doing it after social media emerged. And transgender adults never did it because of social media, and it certainly never won them friends.
So what about women that were trans? Like you say, predominantly it's boys who wanted to be girls.
Right.
But what about girls who wanted to be boys?
So that existed too, and that also typically began in early childhood.
I don't like the framing of this entire interview. He's invited her onto his podcast to educate him. Like, he is asking her questions as if she's a teacher. And I know she chats like she knows it all, but she really doesn't. It's just the fact that millions of people are going to watch this and be like, oh, well, I heard on Joe Rogan that women are taking testosterone to cure puberty.
Most of these kids, if left alone, would outgrow it. So gender dysphoria is something that, most kids, even if they experience the real thing, will outgrow, and some won't.
Yeah, I was reading an article about gender dysphoria. They were talking about it. First of all, even saying gender dysphoria, I think, is hate speech now.
Not gonna lie, unpopular opinion, I think the cis straight people that know, like, all about trans people, they are the snowflakes. They make up in their own minds what trans people are saying. No one has ever said that gender dysphoria and talking about gender dysphoria is hate speech. These people come up with their own ideas of what trans people think and then splurt it out, and then you get, like, 50-year-old Eric who's like, ah, yes, these damn transgenders I heard about on Joe Rogan. Like, come on. Maybe if you got some actual trans person on your podcast instead of this Terf who hates trans people, then maybe the general population will actually understand that trans people aren't actually crazy.
I don't think you're supposed to.
It's in the DSM.
I know.
Is the whole DSM hate speech?
Yes, everything. Your hate speech.
Okay.
But you know what I mean? I mean, like, everything's hate speech because people they've gone so wacky. But they were talking about there was a study done on men who experienced gender dysphoria at a young age and then transitioned to become gay.
My transition to bisexuality.
And just became gay. Just were gay. And they realized, like, this was just a part of their process, and they're happy as a gay man, and they didn't transition.
Absolutely that happens. Maybe there were some kids that thought they were trans because they thought they were experiencing gender dysphoria. Nobody is denying that there are some people that wrongly assume that they're trans when they're not, and later out turn out to be gay, or turn out to be bi, or turn out to be something else. I am not sitting here denying that happens, because of course it happens. But I feel like the point she's trying to make about, people that think they're trans and then turns out they're not, it kind of seems like she's trying to insinuate that the majority of people that say they're trans aren't.
So that's very typical. Most of these kids would emerge as homosexual adults.
Most of these kids. Do you really think it's most? I don't think it's typical of a little 5-year-old gay boy to want to literally cut off his genitals because of gender dysphoria. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I don't think the majority of homosexuals want to literally transition.
That's the thing, is just like, if we're cool with people being trans and we are, obviously, I mean, especially adults, why, you know, why is it better? Do we like this idea that if you just leave them alone, they become gay men? Or would we, I mean, how many of them would be trans if they were encouraged in that direction? How many of are they happier this way or that way? Like this is a very human problem.
Yeah.
And by human problem, I mean there's not really a good answer. Human problems are slippery problems.
I kind of think there is a good answer. If there's a kid, you know, that's showing signs of gender dysphoria, you let the kid explore that. Children are not forced into transition. They're not given cross-sex hormones. Children are not pushed into having gender reassignment surgery. Usually what would happen with a trans kid is that they would change their name, they would change their pronouns, and then they would dress in a more stereotypical male or female way depending on like where they're transitioning into. Maybe it is a phase, and that's absolutely fine if it's a phase, but if you're telling them directly, this is a phase, you will grow out of this, how is that helping? Maybe that'll help some kids that are actually not trans and it actually is a phase, but to the kids that are actually trans, you're just putting it in their head that you will never accept them.
Particularly you're talking about young people. We're hijacking their development. You're deciding, okay, have you made a decision? You know what you're going to do forever? All right, we're going to jump in now and we're going to stop your reproductive cycle.
Right.
We're going to jump in now and introduce hormones that were never in your body.
I find it so funny when people don't know that females actually do have testosterone and men actually do have estrogen. Like, everybody has a bit of both. There's just one that's dominant.
Yeah.
And we're going to, well, a little bit, tiny amounts. We're going to
Okay, Joe knows.
jack it up through the roof like f***ing Hulk Hogan.
Right.
And you're going to be a different person now. And I hope you can make this decision at 17 that will affect the rest of your life. I hope you're mentally capable of doing that. And that's a tall order.
It's a tall order, and there's no medical oversight right now.
What? There's no medical... what do you mean?
We have no idea what long-term testosterone use does to a female's body at 10 to 40 times what her body would normally have. Okay? We don't know. We can talk about the risks, but we don't know. But it's not presented to people as a highly experimental medicine.
Yes, it absolutely is. I've been to 3 different gender clinics. Every single clinic I went to told me that there were no long-term studies and that we don't exactly know what happens in the long term. But there have been trans men that have lived a full lifespan with little to no health issues. Obviously there are risks involved, but before you sign the consent form, you have to go through a list of every negative and positive thing that can happen from testosterone and tick it. I literally had to sit with my doctor. She had to read out every single change that will happen, risks that are involved, and I had to tick every single box being like, yeah, I am okay with this. She makes it sound like people are just going into these appointments knowing nothing and just given testosterone. That's not what happens.
It is. It's not reviewed by an institutional review board. They make it sound like it's something you can just sign a waiver for and no big deal.
No, they don't. No, they don't. She's clearly never actually been to one of these appointments. And I know, like, why would she go to these appointments? Actually, no. Like, she should have gone to these appointments, because then maybe she would know what she was talking about.
Why is that? Why is there no review? Why is there no oversight? Why is this so free and loose? I mean, is it a sign... Is it a good sign that we're like more progressive now, more open-minded, but because of that, things have gotten a little slippery in terms of what we celebrate and what we should rationally step back and objectively analyze and say, hey, is this really the right way to handle this?
I think one of the things that happened was in 2012, WPATH, which is the Transgender Health, organization, worldwide organization, changed to an informed consent model, saying that people should be able to get the drugs they want or, claim to need.
Claim to need?
And the problem was maybe they felt that there was too much gatekeeping, as they call it, or too much questioning. They felt, that there were people who weren't getting the medical care they needed. The problem was you hit 18, and the age of medical consent varies by state. In Oregon, it's 15. It varies. And you hit that age, you can get it. You walk out the door with it.
In Oregon, it's 15?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
You're not even a fully formed person.
No. And you don't need your parents' approval.
Oh, my God.
See, this is an issue I have with a lot, a lot of things. Your parents don't know what's going on in your head. They may think they do, but they don't. The only person that knows what's going on in your head is you.
We were talking before we got on the air about children, like really young children transitioning. You were saying that most people who transition know when they're very young. That is a real, that's a hot button topic for people. Children and hormone blockers and children.
Yeah.
what I keep going to is, if you are a woman and you know you're a woman, why do you need to get these hormones injected into your body? Why can't you just be a woman?
Oh my god. That is a whole conversation. Trans women that seek out medical intervention to help their transition, they need the medical intervention to feel comfortable within themselves. Absolutely, trans women can be women without transitioning medically. But let me tell you, gender dysphoria is a debilitating condition. It is not fun. To a lot of trans people, medical transition is the treatment for gender dysphoria. Obviously, hormonal replacement therapy is not for everybody. It's not for everybody, but to some people, they need it.
I'll call you a woman. Like, what are we doing with all these hormones? Like, why are we imagine you're a person who says, I need to transition to be a woman, and I know that I need a chemical that I've never had in my body before. And if I get that chemical injected, then I'm going to be happy.
Right.
And if I get surgery, then I'm going to be happy. This is what I'm supposed to be.
Right. So the big problem with this is that you're making all the decisions that normally a doctor would make.
What is this blind trust in doctors? Absolutely, doctors are a great amount of help. But are you really telling me you trust a doctor's perception of somebody over their own perception?
Any other area of medicine, a doctor makes that. They say, hold on, I know you think you need, whatever, an opioid, but just relax. Let's see what you're, that's...
How do you suggest doctors do that for trans people? There isn't a magic brain scan or a magic blood test that will tell you whether or not somebody is trans. Gender identity is an inherent thing. It's part of someone's entire identity. That is in their brain. But, we can't do a brain scan that's like, oh, yes, here is the gender dysphoria part of the brain. Oh, it's beeping so loud. You can't do that with trans people. Like, I don't know what she thinks we're supposed to do.
Effectively what facilitated the opioid crisis? Doctors just handing over the prescription pad.
Why is she comparing the opioid crisis to people transitioning? What? Come on!
And we're seeing that right now with anybody who claims to have gender dysphoria. They get it. They self-diagnose. They say, no, I know it's my problem. They don't have a mental health professional who says, oh, wait a second, hold on. You have very high anxiety, depression. You have a lot of other mental health stuff going on. Let's deal with that first.
Yeah, they do. In a lot of places, you're refused hormonal treatment if your mental health isn't in a great place.
Any therapist who dares to say that might violate one of the 19 conversion therapy laws we now have in 19 different states.
There's 19 conversion
I think it's 19,
therapy?
yeah, which bans so-called conversion therapy, even on gender identity, which means that therapists could lose their license if they say, hold on, I know you want to transition. I know you think your problem is gender dysphoria. Let's talk about some of your other problems.
Wow. So a therapist, if you're a 15-year-old kid and you come to a therapist and you say, all my friends are going trans and I think I'm trans too, the doctor has to essentially go with you on this little path you're on?
The doctors feel that they have to. I mean, the number of associations, American Medical Association, Endocrine Society, I mean, you name it, American Pediatric Society, all these medical professional organizations, most of them have adopted affirmative care.
Yes, because what are the consequences of not giving trans people the treatment that they need? If you go to a therapist or a doctor or whoever and you tell them you are experiencing distress because of your gender dysphoria, it is their duty to help you out with your gender dysphoria.
It means their job is to affirm the patient's self-diagnosis with regard to this one issue. I mean, they're it's turning doctors into, life coaches, right?
How much time have we been doing this for? How long is the time period when this really started to escalate?
The last decade. We've seen it fly across the West. I mean, it's in Canada, UK, Scandinavia.
She's treating this like it's some kind of virus. Oh, it started in America, flew across to Canada, now it's in Europe. We don't know how we're going to stop it.
Scandinavia, we're seeing numbers across the West. All of a sudden, it's teenage girls. It's the very same girls who spread every other, contemporary hysteria or every other hysteria.
Hysteria? This is hysterical, love. This is funny.
Boy, it makes you feel like there's a lot of lawsuits coming.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, these girls are getting these things so easily, and they're 15, they're 16, they're 17, they're 18.
How many did you interview when you were doing this book?
So I conducted almost 200 interviews.
Of these 200 interviews, how many of them were from trans people?
How many teenage girls or specifically, I actually don't know. I interviewed a lot of people and a bunch of adolescent girls as well. And
more than 10, more than 20?
Yeah, more than 10, but I don't know. Okay. I have a like spread.
More than 10, more than 20? More than 10, yeah. 20. If you interviewed 200 people about this whole transgender seduction, and between 10 and 20 of them were actually the trans guys that you're speaking about in your book, I am concerned. I'm concerned for your brain, bro. What are you doing?
Sheets for this stuff.
Did you interview ones that were happy with the transition?
Yeah. I did. Still very young, but I interviewed influencers.
She interviewed influencer, single influencer. She interviewed Chase Ross. She interviewed him under the impression that this would be a trans-positive book. He talked about how his videos had helped trans people. And by the way, I have all sorts of opinion on Chase Ross, but she manipulated him.
And I interviewed parents, and I interviewed adolescent girls.
She interviewed parents from a Terf website, which is not the most neutral stance to take when it comes to trans people.
And some of these girls have, stayed with their transition and claim to be happy.
Then why are you calling them girls? And what do you mean claim to be happy? If you're happy, you feel happy, you experience happiness. In general, I am happy. If I told her I was happy, would she say, you claim you're happy? How are you gonna know my emotional state more than I am? She's just some weird-ass conspiracy theorist. Jesus Christ.
Maybe they are, some of them.
Maybe they are, some of them.
But the problem is if you find out objective things about their lives, right? Are you still in school or did you drop out? Or did you cut off your family or did you not?
I don't know how to tell you this, but if you're a trans person and your family is very unsupportive and actively against your transition, which is something that can only, bring you happiness, it's the only thing that can actually make you comfortable with yourself, I can understand cutting off the family. If my family were really about me being trans, I don't know how I'd be able to be around them.
Do you have friends? What's your social life like? What's your job? Do you have a regular job? Very often, the picture is a dark one.
Why do you think that is? Do you think it's because of books like yours? Do you think it's because society treat trans people like I do? I won't lie, obviously gender dysphoria sucks, and that's a whole struggle itself. But when you're experiencing gender dysphoria, and you leave your house, and you're a trans woman, and people are shouting man at you, and they're beating you up, and they're committing hate crimes against you, I feel like maybe you'd be feeling a bit upset. Maybe you wouldn't be as able as other people that don't experience these things. You wouldn't be as able to hold down a steady job, because maybe the people at your workplace are calling you a man and being transphobic towards you. There are so many obvious reasons as to why trans people live lives like that.
It's not a good one.
Isn't that just the case with a lot of people in general, though? I mean, especially people that have the kind of problems that they have to begin with.
Thank you, Joe Rogan.
And they make this gigantic decision.
Right.
The question is, did this decision of transitioning help or hurt?
Right.
And where would they be if they didn't? You were talking about them before, saying they were already in a dark place. They're already awkward.
Right.
Teenagers, the kind of girls who cut themselves, kind of girls who are prone to anorexia and witchcraft.
You're prone to anorexia and witchcraft? Is there a correlation between... Oh, God, come on.
You're dealing with someone who doesn't have a rosy future already.
Right, but I think we used to call that angst, teenage angst. I mean, they got past it. The problem is,
folks.
Yeah, you're right. Not everyone, but now they're getting prescriptions. They're changing the whole course of their lives so easily with no medical oversight.
So you talk about these girls, these trans men that are, before they transition, they were very unhappy with their lives. They were in a dark place. And then you're saying that after transition, when people claim they're happy, they don't actually know that they're happy. You do. What? What do you want? Oh, come on.
What kind of numbers are we talking about? Like how many people are doing this?
Okay, so the numbers are harder to track in the United States because we don't have centralized medical care. But here are the numbers that I can tell you, okay? So gender dysphoria used to afflict 0.01% of the population, so 1 in 10,000 people.
Do you think in the 1700s people had the language to tell people how they were feeling? Do you think in 1709 little Jimmy was like, hey mum, I think I'm a transgender female, I would like to transition medically. Grab me a deed poll, go on.
So probably no one you went to high school with. But today we already know that 2% of high school students are identifying as transgender. And 2% of high school students, you're talking about 1.1 million teenage high school kids in America.
I just don't understand how she doesn't see the bigger picture. We're living in a time where trans people are gradually becoming more accepted by society. Sorry, my camera died. Do you not think that if we're living in a society that's more accepting of trans people, more trans people will come out? Do you not think that they'd be more comfortable now than if they came out in 1709? Do you really think more trans people are coming out now because of this contagion, or do you think that maybe people are more accepting?
2%.
2%.
And when did this happen?
And most of them are girls. Yeah.
Really? Most of them are girls?
Most of them are girls.
Really?
Well, I mean, we can just look at the number of gender surgeries. And we see that in between 2016 and 2017, the number of gender surgeries for biological females quadrupled.
Good, more people are getting medical care. I hated every minute of that. Let me know your thoughts on this video. Alright, that's the end of the video. Have a good day. I don't see you later, losers. Goodbye. I am so irritated.